Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning into this exclusive 016 discussion with Dr. Mark Klempner. I got it right, Doctor. Dr. Mark Klempner from the UMass Chan Medical School. And Dr. Klempner is a professor of medicine at UMass Chan, and he is one of the country's foremost authorities on what we're going to talk about today, Lyme disease. Doctor, welcome to the 016.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Doctor, tell everybody, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you wide open questions, not multiple choice and not yes and no, but short answer questions. Tell us a little bit about what Lyme disease is, why it is such a complex issue to deal with, and most importantly, what your lifelong desire to get to the bottom of this Lyme issue has been.
Okay, well, that's a tall order, but let me let me begin by describing the infectious disease, which is what it is. This is a bacterial infection that is transmitted to people who get exposed to ticks that carry the bacteria. And these ticks are out in the woods and in brush and all of that. And so when you're outside like that in the season of the tick season, you can get infected be bitten by a tick and that has the bacteria, and that then it gets transmitted to you. The consequences of that are now widely known in our geographic area. They constitute a constellation of symptoms often, the summer flu, some people describe it, associated with a skin rash. And if it's not caught early, like that during that rash and early period, it can then lead to really much more serious consequences involving the nervous system, the joints, the heart particularly, and the skin as well. So it's a source of great concern to get that infection. It can be treated with an antibiotic, and that is usually successful. There are people who do have persistent symptoms after that, so-called chronic Lyme disease, and that is also presents a problem. So our idea has always been, while I've spent almost 40 years studying Lyme disease, the goal has always been to try and prevent it.
Prevent versus treat.
Prevent
Right,
versus treat. I've
right.
I've been involved in treatment studies and I've been involved in previous prevention studies. And so those have always been take priority because there's no question, as you point out, that we are facing a real public health threat, which is expanding in both geography in the United States and internationally. And also, it is increasing in incidence because as you expand the geographic area in which the infected ticks live, you extend the area of people that are exposed to them during the tick season.
hmm and we're talking about geographic diseases, if you will. New England is famous for having so many firsts, but having Lyme disease is not certainly one of the things that they want to be known for. As the sun comes in, right?
Yeah,
We always have
exactly.
to fight the
I'm trying to
sun.
get that.
It's always the way. No problem, doctor. No problem. There you
Trying to
go.
get
There we go.
there
I
we
know
go.
it's it,
That'll be a little better.
right. And the other thing that happens whenever you go on camera is that there's always a diesel truck or a lawnmower outside of your area that
That's
happens. But
exactly right.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
so basically Lyme, which may have had its beginnings just south of us in Lyme, Connecticut, is really an international issue that you're fighting to deal with, not just something in Central Mass, but um, certainly you've got something new in that this is a shot and not a vaccine. This product you refer to as TNX 4800. Define the difference, doctor, between a shot and a vaccine, because we know in the last few years the term vaccine has created a firestorm as to their effectiveness.
yeah. So I will do that in a second, but I do want to begin by saying that, when you are trying to design a medicine that you're going to give to completely normal people to prevent an infection, you have to have as your number one concern safety. You're going to be giving this to children. And so that was our starting point.
Okay.
We know that monoclonal antibodies, these single antibodies that can be given to virtually anybody, and are very, very safe when given to even premature babies to prevent infections, that was our starting point. And they also have additional advantages over vaccines, where the safety profile of monoclonal antibodies has been really exceedingly safe. As I've said, given to babies to prevent respiratory syncytial virus, premature babies, you can imagine the risks there of giving a medicine to these premature babies, very vulnerable babies, and seeing how safe it's been over 30 years. Uh, in contrast, vaccines, as you know, have a very different profile. They require, in the case of Lyme disease, multiple injections over many months before you can become immune. And they induce some antibodies that are both irrelevant, don't have any help or hindrance to you, and maybe some antibodies that may have off-target effects or side effects. Here, a monoclonal antibody is a single one of those antibodies that we know will target the place on the bacteria that we want to target that prevents Lyme disease. And perhaps more importantly, not more importantly, but of equal importance to the safety profile of monoclonal antibodies compared to vaccines, is the onset of immunity. In the case of our medicine, TNX 4800, we would anticipate that you would be immune and be protected from getting Lyme disease within 48 hours of getting the shot,
Hmm.
the shot right under your skin. In contrast,
48
uh,
hours.
the vaccine approach currently is about a 6-month lead time before, after you take 2 or 3 shots, and then you would be immune.
Hmm.
And so we think that those two characteristics, the incredible safety profile of single monoclonal antibodies and the onset and duration of immunity, really will favor the monoclonal antibody as a prevention for Lyme disease.
Okay. Doctor, who should get the shot?
Well, as we know, people get Lyme disease by getting bitten by ticks outside. And
Hmm.
so people who are exposed in endemic areas, where they live in the areas where Lyme disease is endemic, and that's ever expanding, and people who spend time outdoors in those areas would be the people of greatest target. And then I guess you could say higher risk would involve people who do activities that spend more and more time where they're exposed to those ticks. So, landscapers and maybe high handicap golfers, who spend an undue amount of time in the
In the
woods.
woods.
uh, would be an important target population. And then, of course, children. I mean, they're very high in our minds. Children go play out in the outside and around the yards and all of that. And so I think ultimately, that is a very important population that we hope will avail themselves of this medicine once we finish all the clinical trial studies.
Doctor, if a person has already been diagnosed in one way, shape, or form with Lyme disease prior, will taking this shot have any impact on their future exposure or risk?
It's a very, very good and interesting question. It turns out that you can get Lyme disease many times, and the reason you can do that is that you don't develop immunity after the infection to the right thing that would prevent it from you getting it again. And so it turns out that this antibody would prevent people who have gotten it previously from getting it a second or a third or a fourth time. So the answer to your question is that it would first be safe for them to take it, and second, it should be effective in preventing them from getting a second infection, unlike natural infection, which is different than most other infectious diseases. Once you've had it, you can't get it again. That
Can't
is
get it
not the
again.
case. That is not the case with Lyme disease.
Hmm. And the other thing that in a little bit of the research I've done, Lyme has several, I want to use the right scientific terminology, co-infections like Barronella. If I say, Barronellosis and babiosis and all that other stuff, um, does does the 4800 involve itself with any of those other co-infections? Um,
Yeah. No, that's very
Hope I'm
important.
answering it asking it the right way.
It is very specific for the Lyme disease bacteria. It would not prevent anaplasma or Ehrlichia, some of the infections that you just mentioned, or Powassan. Um, those are other infections that can be transmitted by the same tick. But this medicine is quite specific for Lyme disease, and it, of course, is the number one tick transmitted disease in the United States by far. And so it is possible in the future to take an approach similar to this with those other infections, but right now we're really focused on preventing Lyme disease.
Okay. And when we talk about, UMass Chan in central Massachusetts, we kind of think that, well, you know what, we only serve the central Massachusetts marketplace. But this research that you're doing is really worldwide, not just localization. It's not like the hospital that service a certain area, right?
That's right. Look,
The medical school.
the research that's ongoing at UMass Chan spans the globe. It is a remarkable institution that we in this area are just so proud of. And of course, you've covered widely the recent Nobel Prize for there as well. But you're quite right that Lyme disease is an international disease. It is widely spread among temperate areas across the globe, all the way in Europe and Asia, as well as the United States. So we have had a view, and the Mass Biologic Organization, where I was previously the executive vice chancellor, was really a public health oriented laboratory where we were looking at medicines of worldwide diseases. We also outlicensed another medicine to prevent rabies in people in India, and that is now was just recently published that it was extremely effective at preventing rabies in over 4,000 people in India. And so we've had a worldwide focus since our origin, which is a long time ago. And we continue that. And the research at UMass Chan is very far reaching.
Right. Doctor, when do you think that this product will be available for general use that you can get a prescription from your local doctor?
Yeah, good question. The timetable would go something like this. We think that the critical so-called field trial or phase 3 trial will occur in 2027. There are a number of things that need to happen in the next coming year, 2026, including going to the FDA and getting approval of, the study design and all of that, manufacturing, et cetera. And so 2027 would be the clinical trial is what I think that the company is shooting for. And they would then follow people for that whole season, 2027. And hopefully you could go before the FDA in 2028 for licensure.
Right.
So that's kind of the optimistic timeline right now would be availability in 2028.
Yeah. And this follows over a decade of research to get to this point as well, right, Doctor?
Absolutely. This has been a labor of many people, a big team at UMass Chan that worked on this for over 10 years. And it was really a spectacular team of faculty and staff that were expert in the production of monoclonal antibodies and the identification of ones that we would think would be safe and effective as preventions for various diseases.
Right. We have been talking with Dr. Mark Klempner from the UMass Chan Medical School. Doctor, I'm going to give you a new phrase that we can use down on Lake Ave now. From Worcester to the world.
I love it.
There we go. Thank you so much for joining us. This is John DiPietro, and you are watching the 016. Have a great day, everybody.